Welcome back. Now, the final panel and the final program of the event will be around Industry 4.0 and multi-technology and partner ecosystem, how they are leveraging, launching new innovative location services across industries. Fabio will be hosting the panel, so over to you, Fabio.
Thank you very much and welcome back. We are here for starting a new panel discussion, a very exciting one around Industry 4.0 and how multi-technology and how ecosystem of partner can help system integrator and especially end customer that are living Industry 4.0 every day on their skin to really get along well with the work they're trying to do and trying to exploit Industry 4.0 as an aid for their work. So this is a very exciting panel discussion, and with us we have Richard from Dyer Engineering, we have Michael from Daimler, and then we have René from Panasonic. So thank you very much everybody for coming here and be our panelists for today. So maybe we get started with a very short introduction by each and every one of you. So René, why don't you start?
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me. I'm from Panasonic. I'm the business development manager at Panasonic in the IoT division. And we are, I would say, a true solution provider in that regard, meaning we are providing solutions consisting of software, services, and hardware. And, you know, within services, there's a whole lot of consultants ongoing. So a true solution provider, I would say.
Fantastic. Thank you, René. Michael, do you want to go next?
Yeah, first of all, also thanks for having me, Fabio, here in this cool meeting. Yeah, I'm with Daimler or Mercedes-Benz right now for the last 30 years. I'm working within the production planning department, and we're responsible here in the automation and controls department for the development, planning, and the global rollouts of automation and control systems worldwide. I'm so happy to be here and to be part of the discussion.
Thank you very much, Michael. And Richard, actually, you all know Richard. He has been also in this event, one of our keynote speakers, but please, Richard.
Likewise, well, thank you very much for having me also on this this panel discussion. So as mentioned in the keynote talk, my name is Richard Lauder. I'm the head of digital innovation at Dyer Engineering. Dyer Engineering is a company that specializes in the batch manufacture of machine fabricated metal components, ranging from those that you can hold in your hands right the way through to multi-ton engine block structures.
Very good. All right, thank you, everybody. So let's get started with the discussion. There's a lot of topics, so I'm trying to organize my thought and the questions that we have collected. But let's start by talking about Industry 4.0. So this is a buzzword that has been around now for a few years. And just to give an introduction, 4.0, it means the fourth revolution of the industrial world, where the first one has been from steel, the steam machinery coming into place for manufacturing. The second one has been the electricity. The third one is the internet. And now there is the Industry 4.0, which is an agglomerate of actually different technologies, ranging from IoT to RTLS, like real-time location system, and all combined together, for instance, with location-based systems, in order to try to provide the experience of digitalization, digital twin, and be able to effectively create a replica of the physical world into the digital world that should help end customer and system integrator to be more effective, be more safe, and be able to manufacture better or to do better logistic and warehousing while containing their bottom-up cost. So why don't we start by maybe hearing from you, what is your definition of Industry 4.0? Because our experience is that depending on where you come from, what you manufacture, what your line of business is, there might be some variant into this definition. So, Michael, why don't you start? How do you define Industry 4.0?
So why not? I think I read most of the nice cyber physical papers about Industry 4.0, 4.0. As I mentioned, I'm an automation and controls guy. So what we do best is reading inputs, doing compute, and setting some outputs. And then the problem in Industry 3.0 is we forget everything. So there's no kind of historical data, and we don't have a, let's call it a kind of base for a learning organization. And so for me, what brings interesting parts to Industry 4.0 is actually the fact that the smart devices, the smart objects are publishing more informations, that we have built up a kind of IoT infrastructures to store that data. And on top of that, we have systems to give us more transparency, and also AI systems in the meantime that help us to build the first steps of a learning organization. That's a big leap forward for us. More complexity in the system, but those are new topics for a classical automation guy, a simple automation guy like myself. And that's for me the part of the key part of the story.
That's very interesting. I like your definition of publishing more data so that you can get more knowledgeable about what is happening on the floor of your manufacturing. I like that. Richard, how about from your standpoint? How would you define 4.0, Industry 4.0?
Sure. So from the perspective of an SME manufacturer, which is obviously what dire engineering is, to me, it's the problems haven't changed. That the problems are always the old problems in terms of trying to remain competitive, reduce costs, reduce lead times. And so I'd say it's the leveraging of the new and emerging technologies to address what are the age-old problems. And what is an interesting point is the time of which that adoption takes place. So, you know, if you're a late adopter, you have to pay the price for the investment just to stay in business, just to because you can't put forward a price to your competitor who's already paid off the investment cost. So being an early adopter, you generally get to leverage the gains from your competitor because that's your datum from where you are to your competitive base, right the way through to where we are now, where the growth of adoption is somewhat exponential, and it's only really been held back through a lack of use cases. However, as they become more prevalent and as the cost of technology becomes more available, which it is, then that rate of adoption is, as I say, and the opportunity to adopt is shrinking quite significantly. So to me, it's around it's automation. You're trying to take the steps of transactions or human involvement in those transactions and human error. You're trying to remove those as much as possible, just to keep costs down to meet the needs of as I say, a global supply chain.
That's great. Yeah, I like that. That's a very good angle from really the manufacturing perspective that could be overlooked at time and be there at the right time in the market with the right technology to meet the competition and meet the cost. I think is important. Thank you, Richard. And Renee, how about from your side? You are definitely one of the very large solution provider, system integrator companies. So what is your experience around Industry 4.0?
Yeah, so Industry 4.0 is obviously a term that is has been used a lot, and I like, the more practical side of it. And for me, it was always the IoT was more, let's say, grabbable, right? Something more that I could relate to, because there you have a task, and Michael just said it. It is about, some parts are about smart materials, right? And so how do you really make materials more smart, right? And then you start at the state of art, and then you're trying to establish a certain point in the future, right? And in many cases, just knowing the ID of a single part or a box in your process, right, is a very good first step. And that's how the whole RFID technology, evolved in the past. It took over almost, the barcode and some processes, related to it. It automated this step, and so you had already the ID of materials, right, automatically provided into your system. And now material that has never been part of your infrastructure before, like boxes or very, parts without an IP address, for instance, right, have been participating the Internet of Things, right? And this was probably the first step. And along these lines, next steps are, of course, attributes that, will be interesting to know along these identifications, like where it is, right? It's a big part. And also, others perhaps, when, like the timestamp for it, to when did it enter that zone, or when did it leave that zone, or even in future, we're talking about the future, at some point, there are so many attributes that could make a material smarter, like having sensor combinations and providing other data as well, right? So for me, it was always the more grabbable and physical aspect for it that is really interesting in that topic.
Interesting. Yeah, definitely, because that makes it more everyday, more real. So I want to actually latch upon one of the things that you all touch in this answer, which was cost. So let me throw an example on the table. This is something that has been surprising when I heard it first time a few years ago. I was talking with a manufacturer, and he was trying to tell me some of the use case and problem that he was having. And I was very surprised when he told me that every year they're losing goods within their factory. So they have to put on the balance sheet every year a few millions of euros of lost material. And I was surprised. So are you surprised? And do you think that the Industry 4.0, it's something that could help in this respect, or the human error is always going to be a factor into that? And Richard, why don't you start?
Sure. Well, yes, from a manufacturing perspective, I can absolutely empathize with lost parts. That was one of the main drivers for our adoption in Quuppa's technology. And that was losing parts, and it's not just the cost of losing those parts, it's the cost to remanufacture those parts, it's the overtime premiums that have to be applied to remanufacture those against truncated lead times, it's the cost of the customer relationship from potentially that could jeopardize their commitments that they have made. There's all the dedicated transport. There's the potential risk of quality defects on having to rush replacement parts through. So yeah, it is a big hidden cost. It's a big distraction for the business. However, if you can get good at what we do, and I would say that we are in the sense that we deal with around 13,000 open operations at any given time, or 1,000 works orders across 100,000 square feet and 11 business units. Just reframing sort of our problem of trying to track and trace all these bits through. And from our perspective, it's because we've got really tight requirements on our tolerancing, parts have to be manufactured in a certain order. So, what might seem like quite a low value part, a small gusset that's going to be welded into something, actually, to keep the tolerance of the final unit correct, is that small item has to be welded in first. So you would think, oh well, actually they can be working on the other area, but if they don't have that one small item, which looks quite insignificant, it stops the entire production. And then you've also got the wasted time of all the welders and the fabricators sat around waiting because they can't work on the part until that small item is found. So I would say losing parts, or solving the problem of losing parts, is a massive one, and one that we're really benefiting from.
Oh, that's interesting. So I draw that you agree that can happen. Renee, how about from your side? What do you think? Have you seen that happening?
Well, losing parts is quite a big terminology. I would say that, it would take a lot of time to get into a, supplier customer relationship that you would even discover things like this, I'd say, right? So it is But losing can also mean like you would not have the right part at the right time at the right place, right? So this is basically the same thing. And yes, I totally agree with what you said. This is one of the main, ROI, balance keeper here. We are providing the right parts to the right time, at the right place. So this is really what it's about. If it's lost, for this time being, it's lost because it's not where it's supposed to be, right? Hopefully it's not really lost, right?
Right. And Michael, I mean, coming from Daimler, I think you have a lot of parts, a lot of things moving on the assembly line. What's your experience on this?
So it's true, we have a moving product, we have moving tools, moving people. So everything is in motion in our company. So unfortunately, we're in a public space. I won't confirm that we're losing cars in here. But to be honest, it's in some cases, it takes us a lot of time to find parked cars in that space. As some of you guys know that we have huge production sites. So it's quite easy that somebody has to do a rework and simply parks a nice S-Class somewhere in that factory space, and some other guy has to find the parked car again. So there are a lot of simple use cases and easy to calculate use cases due to the fact that we have people to send out and physically search for components, tools, and for other people. So it's quite easy. It makes sense to tag expensive parts for several reasons. And one of the easiest reason is please find my car. And that's a real use case. Not only inside the plant, indoors, it's inside the plant, but outdoors. And in some cases, we also have some preliminary parking spaces outdoors. So that's a real use case, and will be also a use case in the future.
Yeah, I can totally see that if someone would be tasked with, can you find a white Mercedes in the parking lot? Probably there are
a lot
more
of them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. There's definitely more than one. Yeah, that sounds great. So I sense some agreement among this use case. Now, reverting back to technologies, I mean, the Industry 4.0 is really an umbrella beneath which there are so many different technologies. I mentioned some of them at the beginning, like RTLS, IoT, location-based service, but Michael also brought up artificial intelligence, and I can add video cameras, RFIDs. There are so many other conjugation of technology that can be used on the floor plan. So as a system integrator or an end customer, do you see a benefits to actually combine multiple technology in order to address your needs in the best possible way? Or do you tend to look for the holy grail, that technology that could, as a silver bullet, do it all? Or where are you standing in between? And maybe in this case, Michael, why don't you start first?
Yeah, a direct answer. IoT architectures aren't possible with a combination of technology developments and new technologies. So it starts with the object itself. The object itself has to have at least some more capabilities on compute power and memory. Has to have the capability to communicate. As a next step, we brought in new protocols like MQTT, OPC UA inside the components. And when you look at the, let's say, the data logistics behind, there are also more powerful networks behind. On the data center side, we saw a decrease of the cost for storage, which is also essential for the implementation of IoT technologies. So it's a mixture of technologies, and on top, you also use new technologies to, let's say, do business with the data. So without a combination of developments, the whole architecture is not possible.
That makes sense. Thank you. Rene, what do you think?
Yeah, what we see oftentimes is, especially in bigger companies, there is these so-called platforms concerning IoT platforms or something like that. Some use different terminologies. And in many cases, it acts like a platform that is more like a middleware, you know, where all these smart devices that are upcoming are connected to. You know, if this is, you know, smart wearables like gloves that have certain functionality, or glasses, or, you know, this goes down to RFID readers or locators, you know, and all these data are collected into one, so-called middleware or platform, you know, that customers are establishing. So I think it's it is a well mix of different technologies.
Yeah, that sounds good. Richard, how about yourself?
So from my perspective, not necessarily getting into the detail of the different sort of technologies within the IoT space, but just I mean the one that we've adopted is the BLE one, you know. But where I see the magic happening is the integration of the data from the IoT devices with in manufacturing. It's our ERP software. So, for example, if you can get the two technology platforms talking to each other, which shouldn't be too difficult, and something which is on our roadmap, you know, you can have things like goods entering a warehouse, and then they can automatically transact themselves into stock. You know, they can go into a quarantine area, they can put themselves out of stock just through their geofence triggers. So what you're doing is you're taking away that human interaction for entering data into the system, and you know it's the product of its place within the business defines where it transacts and its status within the ERP system, and then from there, you know, very much like if I drive out the house, that will turn off my central heating system because I've broken a geofence. So we've already got geofencing and you know, efficiencies happening within the home environment. And I suppose all I'm looking to do is to bring that to the manufacturing environment, but on multi-areaed opportunities to do that. And that, as I say, can be with stock locations. That could be with automated triggers that could be kicked off, that can notify, you know, various people within the business of their requirements to go and address problems or needs. So yeah, I'm a great believer in integrating the various technology layers that currently exist.
Yeah, so what we touch upon is actually the lower part of the value chain, but now, Richard, you started to touch the upper part, which is the software integration and to make the data actionable. So I would like to have a follow-up question, which is, assuming that you have your factory floor, you have all the technologies that are available for your needs, maybe different technologies in different areas, clearly all of these will create a ton of data for you. And then all of this data needs to be aggregated, sorted, segmented, or interpreted in different ways. And of course, you have a large range of use cases, which probably span from security, surveillance, safety, to productivity, for, you know, manufacturing faster or manufacturing a lower cost. And then you have everything that relates to finding tool, not waste time. Like I heard about use cases where people, by adopting the right technology, can cut by 30% the searching time on the floor every single shift. So they had like one dedicated person headcount just looking for the right tool all day long. So it sounds to me that when you are operating a facility, you have so many use cases, so much data come in, but something needs to fill the gap between the data and the desired outcome. So as much as you leverage upon many technologies, do you also think that in Industry 4.0, a manufacturer should leverage upon an ecosystem of solution provider and partners that can make sense of maybe even the same data in a different way? What do you think about this, Richard?
Yes, so I'd say from our perspective, we were an early adopter in shop floor data collection in the 90s. And so we have guys and girls on the shop floor clocking on and off jobs, well, over a 24-hour period, 7 days a week, and with different shift patterns. And that's been taking place, as I say, since the 90s. Our latest ERP system was implemented 8 years ago. And so what do we have? Well, we have quite a large data set as it exists just from those clock-ins, you know, half a million or so transactions. And then from that, we've been working with that data set since our journey on the Industry 4 adoption roadmap, to the point that we've become sort of teach yourselves data analysts, who are able to cut and interpret those large amounts of data and how they're generated. You know, so we can determine the profitability of a part, a department, an operation, a work center. We can look at the deviation against the standard. So I would say, through our natural kind of needs to understand and lift up the hood of the business and see what's going on from a shop floor data collection perspective, that we are going to look to translate those skills to our IoT tracking. So what we're looking there, you know, we can actually track the distance traveled on given parts. So, you know, it might be that we have a part and we perceive it to be quite profitable, but actually it travels a huge distance around the factory and there's a lot of hidden costs. And, you know, it might take 3 to 4 times the time to get out the door as something that might have, you know, on paper, a lower GM, but actually it flies through the factory. So it's to me, it's another view or optic onto commercial performance, to ensure that we are making the right decisions and to identify when things start to go wrong or go away from how we have planned them to be. So yes, in terms of do I think data analytics of these new and growing data sets is a crucial part? Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised if it's commonplace to have in-house data analytics individuals across pretty much multi-market sector businesses.
Yeah, makes sense. So Michael, what do you think? I think you guys generate a ton of data. So how do you make sense of all of that?
Yeah, we're actually supporting both directions. We are generating the data ourselves, saving it ourselves, and even designing and developing our own software to make business with it. But from the beginning on, we also shared those data with suppliers of us. Maybe I can give you an example. We are worldwide about, let's say, 30,000 robots. And most of them were supplied by KUKA in Germany. So what we do is we share the condition data and the asset data of that robots continuously with KUKA to optimize our business-to-business processes together. So there's actually, let's say, a kind of data logistics out of our plants worldwide into let's say, KUKA infrastructure. And they have the opportunity to use that data. But on the other hand, they're also providing software as a service for us, designing condition monitoring overviews and so on. So there's also, in our opinion, a huge benefit in optimizing partner processes, business-to-business processes. Yeah. And that's a topic which is in some cases difficult to explain to some management guys and difficult to translate in dollars and benefits. But it's an easy one. If you have service guys from a company, you should send them to the right robot worldwide. And that closes the gap to position data, even if a robot is not running away, usually. You have to send the right guy to the right physical location, to the right robot, and to give him in advance the right informations about the status of that component. So business to business is also a business opportunity, reduce cost there, and that's one of our focus positions.
And it sounds great because, I mean, by doing this kind of feedback of the data and the telemetry and the other data, you might get a better service at the end because the product is going to get better and better. So it's a good symbiotic kind of partnership in that sense. Yeah, great. Thank you, Michael. And Rene, how about from your standpoint?
Well, I think what was just said, like business to business, especially if it's about suppliers, companies, especially in the past, what we've seen quite frequently is that, you know, the relationship between those companies, you know, is, how should I say, you know, it is very, yeah, at some point it could be better, you know, like you could use the same identification, you know, just tools and mechanisms. And therefore, one part of this business is also standardization, right? So that all groups could use the same, for instance, numberings groups, or if it's up to RFID, this is in a whole own story, you know, to really standardize everything so that can be used, you know, underneath different companies, right? Without, you know, without any of the negatives. And also, I think what was said, like if we're looking at intralogistics processes, right? No one really wants to spend money just for creating data, right? So data have to make sense, right? This is very important, right? So at some point, and that's why middleware is also quite interesting. You know, it's almost the same, you know, important to avoid, you know, data that you are really not using, that does not really lead to the benefit, right? And therefore filter and aggregation systems and things like this are also very important, I think. Not to waste resources, right?
Yeah, that's true, because it's not just the problem of generating data, it's generating good data, meaningful data, something that can really draw an outcome. Yeah, that's a great point. So let me ask you now, looking a little bit more into concrete needs. So I'm sure that all of you have been buzzing and surfing at this term of Industry 4.0 for many years. But when you look at real example implementation that are on the market, how much do you think the technology today is mature to be able to deliver what the end customer is actually needing? And what are the things that you consider to be good, or the things that you consider to be still in need of improvement? I notice that in this panel discussion, there are definitely a lot of companies might be taking notes on what you're going to say. So Rene, maybe I start from you.
Well, if we're talking about technical limitations, so there are a lot of different aspects, I think. One is the technical specifics here, I think. If we're talking about location systems, for instance, it's about accuracy, of course, right? There are so many different technologies on the market, and all provide different accuracies in meters, you know, where parts are, or even centimeters. And then there's vice versa, an infrastructure that you have to implement, right? So how big is that effort that a company has to take to provide those data in that amount, right? And there's also like it has to be user friendly, and you know, with you don't want to change batteries every second day, you know, on that device. So there's a lot of technical things. I think the technology is already quite good, you know, with the latest you know, technology that we're using, especially in the location services. And then there are others like commercial things that we always need to consider, right? You have to help customers to discover the saving potentials. And I liked a lot what Richard just said with the trigger events, right? Like we are trying to automate processes, right, by using certain trigger events that will be given into the customer's backend systems. And so I think this is really one of the main parts that really drives ROI, to further automate processes, and so to save, let's say, human time and interactions, and so error possibilities, right?
Yeah, sounds good. Richard, what do you think?
Going to rephrase the question again.
So so you have been probably bombarded over the years by many companies talking about Industry 4.0 and what they can provide to you in terms of both technology and applications. But as a manufacturer, how mature do you think Industry 4.0 really is in its components and its different technology or solution? Is it something that we could really make use, or is something that still need development?
Okay, so I think each of the elements, you know, there's various kind of aspects or cells, if it were, of the Industry 4 portfolio of technology solutions, and I think they are all in a different state. So, for example, and this is just from my own personal market research and perspective. So, you know, things like asset tracking. there are some providers that have absolutely bang on bottomed out solutions, and you know probably got an associated price tag when we were doing our kind of research into those, and then you had some startups as well, which were pretty not fully resolved. And what I would say is, when you get into that space, you know, there's a bit of a range. You know, the further you go up to the fully resolved, you know, blue chip, you know, pricey solution, the less flexibility and adaptability you've got with that. Whereas if you are prepared to partner with a startup or someone who's developing a solution, and the criticality of launching that technology, you know, the timeframes of it, then you've got good benefits in terms of how you can adapt it. And I'd say, you know, I feel that we our chosen provider, you know, sits in the middle to top end, as in they have a resolved solution, but they are an adaptable business who is willing to take on board feedback. You know, we work as a little bit of a guinea pig to try things out, and you know, work as a test bed to develop their solution, and then if it works for us, well, then that will be translatable to a lot of other providers. A lot of other customers. That's in the IoT perspective. There's things like AI. Obviously, that gets utilized very well for inspection purposes, you know, cameras and what have you. So basically processing huge swathes of data. How translatable is it to an SME in the manufacturing space? Well, we're not too sure, but we are speculating on that. So as I say, we've engaged with one of the local universities, and we've got a PhD researcher who is looking at how AI can be applied to potentially, you know, refining and improving our quote accuracy process, looking to leverage the huge chunks of data generated from the asset tracking, looking to integrate into the huge data sets that we've got from our shop floor clockings. But these, you know, it is a research piece. You know, he's very much managing expectations by going, look, there's probably not going to be a finalized solution here, but the rate of change that I've seen in just the 5 years of sort of being on this Industry 4 journey, it is very much exponential. You know, and I would say, you know, there's things, some of our competitors, and I'd say we're a touch behind, but we are getting there. They're looking to have welding, their welding is going to be fully, well, 95% automated within the next 5 years. Whereas, you know, looking where we were 5 years ago, that would seem like a big stretch. Whereas now, it looks, it's totally achievable, and the prices are coming down to make it achievable.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the industry and the technology definitely evolves faster. Michael, what do you see from your side?
That's a difficult one, but let me give you two different answers. When you look at IoT architectures, we basically have all technologies that we need to build that type of architectures and to deliver digital services to our users. And we are right now in the next phase, actually, to bring the cost down. So at the moment, there are a lot of companies making money with it, selling us platforms, software as a service, infrastructure as a service. So we have to design that architectures in a clever way, not to make those Microsofts, Amazons, SAPs of this world the only rich companies. So it's about intelligent use of cool architectures. When I have to look at the RTLS area, most of the larger customers that also use Quuppa technology, they have a zoo of technologies in place. So they have to invest each and every time in each technology and antennas, whatever it takes. So what will be interesting is a stronger standardization of layers inside ultra wideband, inside Bluetooth Low Energy, and on the upper level have a kind of integration layer in between different location technologies. So actually, to be honest, the Omlox initiative is going in the right direction.
Right.
There's a long way to go. But I think the organization is tackling some of the customer pains and is providing maybe some new options of building multi technology location-based systems.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Thank you, Michael. So the time is running, and I would have still a long list of questions, but I've been told by our director that I need to cut. So maybe I come up with the last question and the last round. So how do you see the industrial world moving in the next few years? What are going to be the direction that the industrial world is going to peak into? And then, of course, for everyone in our audience, maybe they are interested to see whether they can be intercepted by that trajectory. So Michael, can I start from you? How do you see the industrial world evolving in the next years?
So if I would know everything about it, I wouldn't be working still for Daimler's and buying the right stocks and be rich tomorrow. No, I think what will happen, what we see, we will see inside our plants a strong movement on the IT side to more and more cloud-based solutions. So real hybrid cloud solutions inside the plant, outside the plant. So we will leverage that technologies even more than we do right now. And I think we get less anxious to use the technologies. On the automation side, actually, we already know how the world looks like the next 5 years because we have long-term contracts with our suppliers. So there won't be big structural changes in there. There will be electronic components still. The robots look like they look right now this year. So the interaction in between automation and IT, there will happen a lot. Those two parts, IT and OT, will strongly, let's say, work together and be one. And that's already a development that we see the last 5-6 years. So you won't find any automation guy that is not an IT guy and the other way around. So it's a mixture of let's say capabilities that will come up the next years. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah, thank you, Michael. Richard, how about from your side? How do you see the industrial world evolving?
So from my side, I see quite a lot of process automation and standardization happening in the back office, and I also see that geography is no longer a restriction, and I'll give you a recent example of that. So following the initial lockdowns and the situation with COVID, we obviously had to try and keep the factory as safe as possible. So home working wherever possible for those that work in the office. And what did that mean? Well, it started to open our eyes to what the global market is for getting talent into the business, and also for pay-as-you-go talent. And so we had a challenge to go and launch a vast number of components for Hitachi Rail on a very challenging lead time. And the only way we're able to draw down upon that was through accessing engineering services within India, who have the ability to flex up to 500 hours a week of resource that allowed us to launch the parts within the lead time. And then we thought, okay, well, this is interesting. Obviously, we do need to have on-premise localized engineers, but when opportunity presents itself, we can also draw down on other ways to solve problems and meet customer requirements. And the second one is we had a very sizable quotation to upgrade our ERP system with a UK supplier. Unfortunately, cash positions were tight as a result of COVID, but we still had the requirement to upgrade our hardware and software. So that took some out-the-box thinking, and we were able to source a technical consultant again from Mumbai in India, and he was able to deliver the project at 17% of the cost of the UK. So I would say from a people perspective that there's certainly opportunity for global sourcing. And then in terms of the shop floor environment, anything that's anything of a repetitive nature will be supported through either robotics or cobots. I'm not too sure people are familiar with those, but they're essentially a halfway house of robotics that can work alongside humans. As I say, anything of a repetitive nature will be suited towards automation. And yeah, I do see a change in resources, but I also see opportunity for new talent coming into the workplace. Lots of data analytics apprentices learning how to drive the robotics and sensors on machines for preventative maintenance.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, definitely a very different word, but a lot of opportunity for people that are studying today into finding the right track of studies. Yeah, Rene, what do you think from your side? How is the world going to change?
Well, there's not a lot that I could say now, after the two experts did already mention their expectations. I think one aspect that is probably still out there is so-called the green production. There's one aspect in, to save resources, to save and save also the environmental conditions, I think. And this is also an aspect that we've seen growing within, initiatives inside bigger companies. And there are different examples like wasting paper, for instance, right? There are still so many processes out there that are wasting paper every day for no real reason, right? Just to have a sticker on a box for 10 meters and then it goes into the bin or something. So there are a lot of aspects more than this, but I think this is one that I could add to that what's just been said.
That's actually a very, very important one. Definitely sustainability is a big topic across all the industry and vertical market. But hey, we reached the end of this panel discussion. This was so inspiring. I've learned a lot, and I hope that everyone online did the same. I want to thank you all for your contribution as an industrial expert into this discussion. And I want to thank our audience for staying with us and be online. We'll talk to more soon. Thank you very much, everybody. Bye.
Cheers now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Great panel discussion. And hey guys, this is it. We are come to the end of the Quuppa Location Innovation event. I thank you so much for all the participants who've been listening to us over the last 5 days, over the last 2 weeks. And all the panelists, all the keynote speakers. We will come back to you next week with the questionnaire, asking you for feedback, how we can improve this event. And the recordings of all the presentations will be available for you, so don't worry if you missed one of them. I also like to thank very much the guys who made this possible. So please, let's visit the Quuppa marketing team on stage. Welcome guys. You made an incredible job here.
Thanks.
Excellent.
It was great.
It was. And there isn't a Quuppa event without the traditional Quuppa song, so I want to invite some of my colleagues on stage here, and you all back home in your home sofas or offices, please grab a bottle, please grab a glass, and join us in the Quuppa song. There we go. Yes! Woo! Welcome. Ville, over to you.
Okay, let's have it. Are we ready?
Thank you very much. See you next year. Thank you. Bye-bye. Take care.